of time. First, I want to talk a bit about Flavor of Love because I feel like this is one of the sort of most visual textbook instances of the political repression in hip-hop culture, one of the most significant indicators of the political unconscious of hip-hop culture. I gave a talk that was based around politics within hip-hop a few months back, and I had a group of about 200 college students. Most of them were white, and I asked them, I said, how many of you guys have watched the show Flavor of Love? And most of them raised their hands. About 90% of these students raised their hands, and it's one of the VH1's most popular shows. I then asked them, how many of you have listened to a Public Enemy album? And no one raised their hands. And so to think about Flavor Flav, who was the hype man for one of the more political hip-hop groups in the history of hip-hop, as only being engaged through his sort of minstrel facade on Flavor of Love is an extraordinary repression of the politics and the political history of Public Enemy. So I think my work is invested in trying to sort of re-engage some of those things. And although we might hate Flavor of Love and the different spin-off shows, we need to remember what kind of transformation has taken place there for Flavor Flav. Maybe he always functioned a little bit behind the mask in terms of how he supported Public Enemy, but he was a central member of Public Enemy. And for people of this particular hip-hop generation to only engage him, through Flavor of Love is unfortunate. I got to start skipping around a bit because I'm running out of time. The Meet the Parents reference, though, is to Jay-Z. Maybe I can get that in Q&A if you guys want to talk a bit about that. One thing I'm also obviously interested in is what kind of political action emerges out of this unconscious, or what can emerge out of this unconsciousness. And the reason why I go to Hurricane Katrina is because I feel like it is an historical and watershed moment for the hip-hop generation. I think more so than 9/11, Katrina impacts how we see this country and how we see government resources and the extent to which they focus in or can channel in on our own communities. And I often talk about this moment with Kanye West as a moment of political unconscious, because if you saw that live, and I don't know, I think it was tape delay, so I'm not sure if everyone on West Coast could see it live. If you saw that live, you could see Kanye West struggling with his own feelings. And when he just blurts that out, you can tell that he has repressed some of his politics. And so it's a sort of visual example of the eruption out of the political unconscious. Now, I also didn't think that particular scene was very, very political, by the way. I didn't think it was very, very groundbreaking to acknowledge the fact that George Bush doesn't care about black people. I think that's something that politically we probably should have known prior to Kanye West saying that. However, what I also often say about hip-hop culture is it has an extraordinary political capacity for self-critique. And there's an underground rapper out of Philadelphia who has this great line in the song that's called Still Ain't Good Enough, where he essentially says, I'm not mad about Kanye's comments, I'm more mad they call Kanye conscious. That's a really powerful line to me, because it's challenging us to not settle for that moment on NBC as a political moment, right? This rapper, he's not mad about Kanye's comments. Yeah, he's right. But he's more upset about the fact that we think of that as some kind of conscious moment, right? Again, that's an indicator of the extent to which we repress our politics. I don't have time to really go into those other examples, but again, maybe we can get that in Q&A. A quote on Infrapolitics, I'm out of time already? A quote on Infrapolitics, right? Defined here. And I'll just take two more seconds here. Despite appearances of consent, oppressed groups challenge those in power by constructing a hidden transcript, a dissident political culture that manifests itself daily in conversations, spoken word, joke songs, and I emphasize here other cultural practices. And so what I'm suggesting for us, this notion of the infrapolitics of hip-hop, is those other cultural practices can refer, in this case, to rap music and hip-hop. And we are obviously engaged in some hidden transcripts of politics. Some of the examples I have of this are, most of you are probably familiar with the Fugees. They have this classic album, The Score, and on that album they have this song called The Mask. And one of our more widely anthologized African-American poets of the 19th century, Paul Laurence Dunbar, has a poem called We Wear the Mask, and obviously those two things are directly connected. What I would suggest, though, is that there is a hidden transcript of politics that interacts between black literature and hip-hop that brings them together from 1896 to 1996. Also have some other examples there as well. An excellent quote from Talib Kweli, also to get a sense of how some of these transcripts are hidden. This is from the song, I think it's called Africa Dream, and he says,